Hello and welcome to the Kubernetes podcast from Google. I'm your host, Caslin Fields.
And I'm Ophir.
This week's interview was recorded live at Google Cloud Next and features Alain Regnier and Camila Martins talking about recent developments in Kubernetes and cloud-native technologies, including exploring highlights from KubeCon EU and the value of community events. But first, let's get to the news.
AWS introduced a specialized Model Context Protocol, or MCP, servers for Amazon ECF, EKS, FIN, and AWS Serverless, providing real-time contextual responses and service-specific guidance to guide AI-assisted application development.
Summer is the season of KubeCon events in Asia. KubeCon China took place June 10th to 11th. KubeCon Japan was on June 16th and 17th. And KubeCon India is coming up August 6th and 7th. Be on the lookout for cool announcements coming out around these events.
A reminder for CNCF open source project maintainers. The upcoming Maintainer Summit, co-located at KubeCon North America, has an open CFP which closes July 20th. And the Maintainer Trap CFP for KubeCon North America closes on July 7th. These opportunities are only available to CNCF project maintainers, but if you are one, make sure you take advantage of these opportunities to share the awesome work you're doing with users and fellow maintainers.
A new open source project, LLMD, aims to create a well-lit path for serving large language models, or LLMs, on Kubernetes. It combines VLLM with the Kubernetes Inference Gateway to enable smart, state-aware routing that dramatically improves latency for multi-turn conversations by leveraging KV caching.
Speaking of Gateway API Inference Extension, a blog on Gateway API Inference Extension was published. Inference Extension aims to make serving LLMs on Kubernetes easier with much-needed features like model identity-aware routing and request criticality.
And that's the news. Hello, everyone. We're coming to you live from Google Cloud Next, where I'm very excited to be recording Kubernetes podcast episodes for video as well as audio. So if you're listening to this on audio, there's also a video that will probably be posted on our YouTube channel. And today, I'm excited to be talking with Camila. And could you pronounce your name for me? I didn't get to ask you before.
Alain.
Alain. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes. Hello, I'm Alain Regnier. I'm a CTO of a small startup based in Paris called Kubo Labs, and we develop tools to help identify and solve issues on your Kubernetes cluster very quickly.
Excellent.
Yeah, my name is Camila Martins. I'm from Brazil. I'm a GDE from Google Cloud and also Modern Architecture. I organize some DevOps Days events like CNCF, KCD events, meetups, the KCD Rio de Janeiro actually, and DevOps Days through Brazil and Latin. So yeah, I'm so involved with the community, and also I'm a senior SRE at Starblock too. Yeah.
Thank you both so much for being on today. I'm excited to talk about some of the things that you all have been doing recently. Let's start off with KubeCon EU. Alain, I know that you were there.
Yes.
How did it go?
Yes, I just switched from KubeCon to Next.
Right over. It was the week before,
exactly.
so.
Exactly. No, it was great. A lot of interesting things to find out. One of the big news for me was the Neonifos project. I don't know if you've heard about it. They mentioned it during the keynote. It's an effort to build some sort of sovereign cloud in Europe. And this is a very major topic in Europe right now. And I've been involved on the French side of things with what's called Second Cloud there. And this new project that we hadn't heard about before is actually backed by the Linux Foundation. And as you can imagine, this is a big thing. A lot of other interesting things. So, I was in Salt Lake City before that. I was in Paris before that. I've been going to KubeCon many times over the last few years. One of the things that was very interesting to me also was the presence of OpenTelemetry everywhere. Like everywhere. This is really very interesting and good, I think, for the industry. Platform engineering was a big thing also. There are still some solutions that seems a bit complex to implement within companies, but we're getting there. So something also that was very interesting for me in London, especially compared to the other edition, was that I attended several very technical talks. That's not always the case. Maybe I missed them on the program, but this time, a couple of sessions, I went out of the session thinking, wow, I definitely need to watch it again, because it was very interesting, very technical, the kind that I like, and I did not get everything. So, well, that's pretty much it. Otherwise, just a regular KubeCon Europe, and very similar to what took place in Paris last year or in Amsterdam 2 years ago.
Yeah, the KubeCon schedule is so large. It's hard to judge which talks will be exactly what you want them to be. And so that's something common that I hear. So a couple of themes from KubeCon, it sounds like observability, especially telemetry, platform engineering, which I've seen here as well. We had a platform engineering meetup, which was really, really crowded here on the next show floor. Excellent.
One nice thing also, that's a personal thinking, that there was more observability than AI, I would say.
I did hear that it was lower.
Yes. And that was a definitive plus. Of course, we still need AI and we want AI in observability too, but I think it was much more related to what we actually do with our customers. So
a better balance.
Yes.
With the new upcoming AI stuff, which a lot of folks aren't really doing yet, and the stuff that everyone is actually doing.
Exactly.
Yep. Understandable. And KubeCon is, of course, a huge event for the cloud native community and is used as an example for a lot of different events. And Camila, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, CNCF, and we have other events around the world. And, we have a lot of different communities. So, for example, we have the Docker community. The Docker is right here, too. And we have the Docker community. I'm also a Docker captain. And we try to help people to understand containers, because it's curious, but we have a lot of people that want to go inside, go deeper in the world of developer and DevOps, DevSecOps, but they do not understand nowadays on how to build, how to create images. And I think the most important thing is to understand the basics, and we go to the containers, and we have other communities there. We have Elastic that it's also here. We have the CNCF community. So we have right now in the last month, we had KCD event in Rio de Janeiro.
And that's Kubernetes Community Days, for the acronym.
Exactly. And we had a bunch of people, almost for a community that just started this year. And we had only like 3 months to organize. We had 300 people, and everyone was so involved, and in a place that it only supports like 150 people.
No.
Yeah, and so we saw people standing up and watching the talks, but it was so amazing because we have a community in Latin America that wants to help, wants to share. And I think in DevOps, in communities like Cloud Native, the most important thing is how we can help, support, make people migrate to other careers. And I saw a lot of people changing their lives. So these events like Google Cloud Next, KubeCon that I was in Amsterdam 2 years ago, and also in Salt Lake last year, they are so important to create connection, networking, and also to understand that it's not about only your journey, but we have a bunch of people that it's only in the same journey. So you have a lot of people that can help you. So that's why I believe in the communities, and that's why I support them. So we have all of these communities, also the HashiCorp community that's also here.
Wow.
Yeah, all these companies, they are not just in the booths, but they are trying to help these people to go deeper and go further. So yeah, it's a hard work. I think people that go to the events, I don't know if everybody understands how hard it is to do all of this, but yeah, and that's why I celebrate this, and I say to everybody that I know that work and volunteer for thanks for your work. Thanks for being volunteer, because it's really a hard work to do events like this. Even if it's 160 people, 50 people, a meetup for 20 people, it's really hard work. Yeah, because we have other things to do, but we're doing this because we believe on this. Yeah,
absolutely. And you run Kubernetes Community Days Brazil, and you do events throughout Latin America. That was a lot of events.
Yeah, I'm an organizer from KCD, Rio de Janeiro, with other incredible people. But I'm also organizing DevOps Days, Rio de Janeiro, and supporting other DevOps Days that they are through Brazil. And I'm a speaker in a lot of Latin America events, not only from KCD, CNCF, but also from Google. For example, we had right now, we just ended the season of the IDD, International Women's Day, from Google, and we had in Rio, and I'm going in the end of this. It's ending this season, so in the end of this month, I'm going to Bogota to talk to amazing women, and we are starting right now also the Build with AI. So yeah, Google is also celebrating. And we have a lot of things at DevRel, things and stuff to do. Yeah.
Let's dive deeper into the content that happens at these kinds of events. What do folks want to learn? Alain, you were at KubeCon EU. You talked a little bit about some of the talks that you saw that were really technical. I'd love to hear more about those. And I'd also love to hear about a talk that I hear you gave about the 10 best practices for Kubernetes. Could you give us a little sneak peek at that? What are some of your top best practices? And then we'll come back to your favorite talk.
Sure. Yeah. So actually it was a lightning talk regarding GKE and best practices. What can I say? For example, when you get started, you need to be very careful with your node pool, the way you create them, because they can cost you a lot more than they actually need to. For example, you can select specifically a zone or a region where it's going to be cheaper for you. So you have to evaluate the ratio between the latency for your users and the price you're going to pay. Something as you can do is you can purchase committed usage, so that basically you say, I'm going to be using for 1 year, for 3 years. You're going to get a discount. It's a nice way to save on the cost. You can also use preemptible VM, is not being called spot VMs on JKE, where basically the VM can be kicked at some point, but it will be much cheaper for your usage. So if your workload can handle it, it's very nice and a nice way to save money. Another aspect that you can also investigate is all the advanced networking features you get on JKE, and very often people don't know them or don't know them well enough. For example, private clusters, where you're going to get only private IP for your nodes, low security risk of someone accessing the nodes from the outside. The authorized networks, where you specify which IP address can access the Kubernetes API. What else? Also the data plane v2, which is a very nice feature where basically it's based on eBPF, and you have advanced features. One that I particularly like is when you create network policies on your cluster, something is being prevented. Well, nice, the network policy is working, but you don't know exactly who was making a request and so on. All that you can get the logs with Dataplane v2. That's pretty nice. So again, knowing in advance all those network features. Another one also, which is very nice, is the IP alias mode on GCP, which turns into what I think is called VPC native cluster now on JKE, where basically one node will get its IP address, but also a full subnet of IP addresses that will be attached to the node. And those IP addresses will be used for the pods directly. So from a routing point of view, from an overhead point of view, this is actually much more efficient. Well, that's the kind of thing that I think you should know when you're using a JKE. And maybe a third one, which is very rarely used, and I'm very surprised by that, it's the GKE dashboards. The whole thing has been completely revamped. It's very powerful. You can do filtering, you can do a lot of things. And every time I ask people, I only have a few hands that raise, oh, I didn't know I could go there. Usually we get the cluster and they work with the cluster. Well, one advice is to really spend half an hour with the JKE dashboard, and then you will always get back to them.
Yeah, kind of boiling it down to 3 points that really apply anywhere is node management,
Yes.
figuring out what machines are in your cluster and keeping it to the machines that you need and the sizes that you need.
Yeah.
Fascinating area of cost optimization that I love to talk about. I might ask another question about that. And then networking. Always good to understand how your networks work, especially if you're working in the cloud. If you're working between different regions, there can be costs associated with that. If you have to transfer data outside of the cloud, there's always costs to think about. Definitely something that you want to look into and make sure that you understand as you're getting into wherever you're running your Kubernetes clusters. And so we've got node management, networking, and observability.
Yes.
Dashboards, ways that you can visualize what's going on in your cluster so that you can control those costs. You can't control the costs if you don't know what you're spending on.
Yes. And don't just set up observability and forget about it. Spend the required amount of time to learn how to use them and go back regularly to your dashboard so that you don't lose the touch, because we also see often people that have not been to their observability tools for a while. They just don't know how to use them anymore. And so they stop using it completely.
Yep. And then at some point you're like, oh, what? Didn't we have something that told me what was happening in this cluster? Where did that go? I've seen that happen before. All right, Camila, let's talk a little bit about some of the content that you've seen at events lately. What are some of the big trends that you're seeing around Kubernetes and cloud native? What do you think people want to learn about?
A lot about observability, like Alain said before, things like OpenTelemetry. I'm watching a lot of these things. And in Salt Lake, I saw a bunch of talks about it and a lot of trends with AI. So yeah, absolutely AI is a thing. So how we can use AI in monitoring, so how we can apply it to understand when it's a peak in monitoring and understand if this peak it's normal and it's going to be normalized, or it's a thing that it's out of the monitoring, or maybe also in documentation, AI to help to create documentation, because we know that it's not everybody, or for example, me, that we not like to write documentation as well. But we know that it's so important. So we have Gen AI to, create this documentation, not only to us to understand what we did before, what we are doing, but to also document our architecture, so our team, to other teams in across work and between other in our company. And also, I'm watching some companies that are trying to put AI as a thing to, hey, we use AI too, so come on. Yeah, that's really a thing. And I saw a report that it's really interesting from Docker, that because it's also a thing that we are talking a lot about, like AI, what's going to happen to us with AI. And Docker did a report that is so interesting, that Gen AI, it's helping us with our work. Like, for example, to build CLI commands or commands, or for to create documentation, or for create tests, because in our infrastructure environments, we know that there's not every place that we create tests for our infrastructure behavior, and we know that it's a thing that we need. And also to create code and what kind of code we are creating. So all these models that also we are seeing right now with Gen AI and 2.5 and others, I think these models that are being best improved, we can create code that we can go further with our infrastructure as code, so we can create best Terraform, Docker, and implement it in our cloud. So I know that sometimes when you get, and also to troubleshooting, because sometimes when we get a thing that's going wrong, we just got that and we just search it in Google, and now Google is better because we have
somebody else has figured it out.
We have Gemini too.
Yeah.
So and right now we have, and it was a problem because sometimes that error that we had, nobody had before. So it was like, okay, so what we can do, and Gemini is improving us to, okay, what kind of things we can do, because we are mixing the models with the documentation that this platform that we are trying to troubleshoot has. So yeah, it's improving us to go best with our applications and to maintain our infrastructure. So I think all the companies, in a way, they're trying to put AI, but to improve what they have in a way about observability or to create infrastructure or to maintain this infrastructure. And but the things that I see the most, like Alain said, it's more about observability and how to work with this observability. And like I said, a lot of open telemetry. And I think that I really love that it's eBPF. I love eBPF. I just met Liz Rice. Liz Rice, if you're hearing this, I love you. So, we love you, Liz. We love you, Liz. So, and also about these advanced networks, network policies, how to deal with different protocols, and how to work inside the Kubernetes with high performance, cluster mesh, service mesh, improve the service mesh, because we are talking about service mesh for a long time, but how to improve the service mesh. So this job with eBPF, they are going really deep dive with that too, and it's amazing. Not only is about it, but other companies too. It's so nice. So,
and just to get back on what you said, I think it's important also to realize that the results we get from AI tools have considerably improved over the last couple of years.
Yeah, especially in the last couple months.
You're right.
Amazing.
And we're getting to a point where it's actually becoming really useful.
Yeah.
And that's something to
I kind of love the combination in what you were saying of observability and AI. I think there's something really important to point out there. You were mentioning documentation, which I love the call out for. AI can be such a great tool to get you past that blank page. If you need to write some documentation and you're like, oh, I don't even know where to begin, or if you're writing a blog post or whatever you may be documenting, AI can be really useful for just getting you started. And with AI and the ability to generate these things, I think the volume of everything we're seeing is going to increase dramatically, and being able to understand what we have when we're operating in that kind of scale and when there's that kind of scale of things to consume, observability becomes even more important again. Even though we're talking about observability of systems, I think kind of it all works together. AI is going to kind of explode the amount of stuff that we're looking at in all kinds of different areas. So
yeah, I think AI doesn't need to be the whole thing, but a way to start it. So for example, I don't know how to start this architecture, this documentation, but how can I start it? So it can be useful to create ideas to use. So it's really useful for it. Yeah, for sure.
I like to remind folks that content that exists is better than content that doesn't.
Yeah. Absolutely.
AI is so helpful for that, but you do always have to check it. It can make things up. So you don't want to just AI generate all of your stuff. You want to at least check that it's right, but it can get you far fast.
And you don't want to execute on production what the AI gave you before reading it. And making sure.
There's definitely no security problems in this code. So coming back to Alain, let's talk about some of those talks that you've seen recently. What are some of the coolest things that you've learned in talks? And we'll be quick with this one.
Yeah. Well, there was
whatever you can get off the top of your head.
So there's one that was a subject that I wasn't very familiar with, which was the CSI, the storage interface. I attended a talk that was talking about how to extend the CSI API. But they gave a very nice overview and deep dive of how it works and why. This was particularly interesting for me because, again, this is a subject I did not really dig before. And
was that at KubeCon?
The KubeCon.
The container security interface?
The container storage interface.
Storage interface. There we go.
Yeah.
What is this?
and I was surprised because I went to the talk just to learn a few things, and it was much more insightful than I expected. So,
and that kind of, I see a tie into the AI. It's just what's top of mind, isn't it? The prevalence of stateful applications on Kubernetes is just skyrocketing. Another reason that you need to observe it more closely, and also that storage is becoming really important.
Yes.
I don't know if they made that tie-in in the talk, but...
So not in that talk, but that's an interesting point. I also got to see on the developer lounge area a talk about, I forgot exactly the name of the project, but basically it's Postgres running directly on the cluster, not even as a stateful set, but with redundancy, with failover directly. And the demo they made was very impressive. So I definitely need to dig in that again.
While we're talking about storage and stateful, I'll take the opportunity to go off on a slight tangent and tell everyone something that I think folks should know. If you've ever looked into Agonis, is a open source project for running game servers on Kubernetes. When I started looking into it with Mark Mandel, who is one of the folks who really the person who kind of created it, what I noticed is that it's just a really good tool and system for running stateful workloads on Kubernetes. So if you haven't checked that out for your stateful workloads, even though they're not game servers, you might check out the kind of structures and processes that Agonis put in place. It could be useful for all kinds of stateful workloads. So the CSI talk, any others come to mind?
What else? Well, there were several on AI at different level, including here at Next, AI for developers, because we do development, as I mentioned, and, starting from asking ChatGPT a couple of years ago, how would I do that? And just finding which framework, which API, and getting some pretty good results. Now we see new mechanism, a new application like Windsurf, Cursor, and so on.
Yeah.
And integration in your IntelliJ, IDE of something like Gemini. Those are very powerful tools, and the demo that I've seen were very interesting. That's something also that I definitely want to. But for me, going to a conference like that, it's a good opportunity to learn about new things, and then you want to dig into them as soon as you're back. And the key aspect of all that is: are you going to be able to dig into them over the last couple of weeks after the show, or months later?
Yeah, and it's always good to think about the perspective that you're looking at AI tools from, because it's like there are so many AI tools for the developer workflow that I think folks are really interested in how they can make their own work as developers much faster. And then there's, of course, all of the AI tools that you build into applications for your users. So there's a couple different perspectives to consider there. So we're talking about developer tools that are integrating AI. Excellent. And Camila, you've had some time to think about your top talks and topics recently. What are some of the best talks that you've seen recently?
I saw some talks are really interesting. For example, I saw on how AI helped on McDonald's in first.
Oh yeah, I love user stories.
With data governance, it was really nice how to deal with, because I was talking about it before. It's hard to deal with events, and it's hard to deal with a huge restaurant worldwide, and they are using AI with that. And it's so interesting to see how AI is helping with different contexts. So I saw that for McDonald's, and I saw that for Target too, to deal in the context of McDonald's with the food, and Target with electronics. And I saw also a thing that it's more academical, that it's GECO, I think this is the name, that it was for images, models to images. So how we are dealing with understand if it's a thing that we already have, but they are improving it, how to understand if it's a dog or not, different dogs, but they're making it in an academical way. So it was really nice. We had GDE content too, so it was really amazing. And for me, the keynotes that we had was so nice. The VO2 and also the AI agents, because I'm more in Google Cloud stuff, but because we have a bunch of AI things, so we need to learn these things. So AI agents, for me, it was a thing. So in the first day of the keynote, one thing that really impressed me was in the moment of, I don't remember, but an e-commerce that you can talk with the chat and collect everything and make discounts and go to the checkout and make the whole process just talking with the website. It was a thing. So yeah,
the ways we interact with computers are changing.
and yeah, absolutely. And how they are now understanding us. Before it was like a thing we talk and sometimes they do not understand before, and now we talk and they understand, like Oh, amazing. I'm talking like it's really a person. Yeah, it was crazy. And so we had a lot of new ideas and features and developer and the general keynote. It was a thing. But the AI agents and this news about the VO2, that it's a thing that I'm following since the last year in the Google I/O. It's a thing that really impressed me. Yeah, for sure. And how they are helping other companies, banks, and clouds, multi-cluster and multi-cloud content. It's really a thing for sure. Some things just Gemini does. Yeah.
I love keynotes at any event, KubeCon, Next, whatever conference you may be going to, because they always try to, have the biggest themes really well represented there. And so you get a lot out of going to one session, even though it's a very long session. Mm-hmm. I also love that you mentioned the developer keynote, because I was actually backstage during the developer keynote helping to run some of the backups.
Wow.
Fun fact, one of the 2 failures in the developer keynote was real.
Wow.
So go check that out.
Okay.
See if you can tell which one was the real failure. It was so smooth, it's hard to tell. So thank you so much, both of you, for being on today. And I'm so glad that we got to talk together at Google Cloud Next and make a video. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of another episode. If you enjoyed the show, please help us spread the word and tell a friend. If you have any feedback for us, you can find us on social media at KubernetesPod or reach us by email at kubernetespodcast@google.com. You can also check out the website at kubernetespodcast.com, where you'll find transcripts, show notes, and links to subscribe. Please consider rating us in your podcast player so we can help more people find and enjoy the show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.